the focus of today's session is KPIs. So the
Mm.
first thing I'd like to ask you, John, is could you give us all your definition of what a KPI actually is?
Yeah, definitely, because there's definitely a lot of confusion when people talk about KPIs, right? And when I talk about KPIs, I'm specifically referring to the leading KPIs that kind of drive behavior. So I think some of you will know, most of you will know, there's leading and lagging KPIs, right? A
Yeah.
lagging KPI is a report of what's already happened. So sales, revenue, EBITDA, whatever. A leading KPI is the behavioral metric that drives the output. So if you're talking about membership sales as the lagging KPI, your leading KPI would be calls, appointments, tours, POSR, for example.
Hmm.
And that's what I talk about when I'm talking about KPIs. So as a definition, I guess a KPI is an indicator that tells a leader where to focus their attention. If the KPI doesn't kind of change behavior or create a specific action, it's not a leading KPI. It's either a metric or a lagging KPI. And I think that's where people get confused. So when I'm talking about, lean into your KPIs, I see it on LinkedIn frequently, oh, but it's not all about numbers. And it definitely isn't, it's about the behaviors that you have per each day. But how do you know what direction to go in? How do you know how to manage your day to drive performance? And that comes from understanding and moving those leading KPIs along. So, look, not every metric is a KPI. Like I say, a true KPI has to drive a decision and a behavior or an action, and it has to be influenced by behavior. So if a number doesn't kind of change what you do next, it's not a KPI. It's just a report. It's just
Right.
it's just a noise in itself. And I think that's why understanding leading and lagging KPIs is so fundamental to success in this industry. Like I really believe that. I think a good example of a lagging KPI is membership sales, right? So a lot of leaders look at membership sales as a KPI. They really put it on a pedestal. Pedestal is kind of the most crucial and critical KPI in the business. If we're not selling, we're not winning, which is true to a point. But membership sales by itself just really isn't important to me at all. You know, a GM walking into the membership sales office and asking how many sales are we on, or how many sales did we do yesterday, is probably the most frequently used kind of useless question in the whole fitness industry, because the answer to that question, it doesn't tell us anything. It tells us only what's happened.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't drive an action or a behavior. It's just a number. And a better way to do business, in my experience, is really leaning into the leading KPIs. So when you go into the membership sales office, talk about, you know, how many calls have we made, how many appointments have we booked, what's our show percentage, how many point of sale referrals have we got. Let's look at the ratios: call to appointment, appointment to tour, tour to sale, sale to POSR, because these leading KPIs give you so much more insight and more to it. They actually tell you what to do next. So as an example, if appointments are low, you know, if sales are low, we need to go right the way back through. If appointments are low, we know it's going to be one of a few things, right? Either enough calls weren't made, or the quality of the call wasn't good enough, or the leads were not good enough. But knowing appointments are low, not we know that tours are not going to be enough to deliver numbers, and we need to fix one of these three things in order to improve the chain. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to say that I would say my definition is a KPI is an indicator that tells a leader what to do next.
Brilliant. And it's funny, that example you gave. When I was at Total Fitness, Albert Gube, who's the
Yeah.
founder, as you know, he would quite often walk into the sales office, and his first thing, he would point at one of the membership salespeople and say, "How many calls have you made today?" He didn't say how many sales have we made. He'd pick on an individual, and quite often he'd done his homework because that person wasn't making as many calls as somebody else. So
Yeah.
then, as you've explained, then he would dig a bit deeper. So Fascinating. When did you first start to use performance indicators yourself, John? At what point in your career was it?
I think, look, they've always been there, right? So from the very early days,
Mm,
we've always looked at numbers, but it was often in a basic way, and it was always about the lagging KPIs, like I say. So how much revenue do we have? How many PT sales do we have? How many membership sales do we have? Um, but over time, you realize that the output, the score, is kind of useless unless you understand what creates the score. You know,
yeah.
so that's when I kind of shifted more towards leading KPIs, or at least behavioral based indicators. And I
Mm,
think the more senior you become, and the more businesses that you have to manage and people that you manage, the more you realize that success is kind of is delivered by controlling those inputs and not reacting to the outputs. I mentioned the sporter earlier. So when I joined the sporter, maybe 2005, 2006, I mean, look, that was not it was not a good business. I don't know if there's any former sporter leaders on here. I hope not. It was not a good business. It was certainly not a nice place to work. But one thing that they were really good at is understanding that certain behaviors drove the output. The output in and of itself was just the noise. It was just the reflection of what you did prior. And when I worked for the sporter, they really had that down well across every department. You do A, B, C, and you'll get, D, E, F, or whatever.
yeah.
So I think when I left the sporter, I left with a real kind of understanding that a KPI, it is the performance catalyst, or certainly the leading KPI is the performance catalyst. It's like your GPS to direct you what to do next.
Mm,
And it's really important because I think we've all seen this, right? We've probably all experienced it ourselves. And I know I have. Certainly in my early days as a GM, when I didn't know enough about how to affect performance, my day would often be, you walk in and you have a quick coffee and you'll say to one of your HODs, how's things? Things good? Everything going okay? Good stuff. Keep going. Good, keep going. And it was a nothing conversation, right? And then you go back in your office and you answer your emails and fill in a report and send it in. But you didn't actually do anything. You didn't actually affect performance in any way, shape, or form. And I think when I came out of a sporter, that's when I had a real understanding that actually it was my job and my role to dig into these behaviors, coach the people on what they mean and why they matter, and how to manipulate them to drive performance. But yet, I mean, to answer your question, I think it's always been there. I think one of the real changes is that the way we used to do business in, I guess, 1998, 99, 2000 with the basic lagging KPIs, it still exists now in some of the businesses around the world, and certainly out where I am. So they're missing so much, they're leaving so much performance on the table because they're still talking about the absolute lagging KPIs.
yeah. And yeah, it fascinates me this, John, because do you think that is this quite easy to do when you get the hang of it? Because I sometimes think whether wonder whether people think, oh, I can't really be bothered with that. It's a lot of bloody, you know what I mean? Because it's detail
Yeah.
and you're looking at trends, aren't you? You're looking at all sorts of things that the indicators tell you. So my question, I suppose, is it easier than people probably assume?
Honestly, it makes your day miles easier because instead of trying to fill your day with
Mm.
things, it actually really gives you a clear direction. So if you're looking at, let's say you need to drive personal training sales, well, the PTT, so personal training tasters, you call it different things in different businesses, right? But
Mm.
personal training tasters as a KPI is how many new members booked on to a taster or a consultation. Now, if that figure is up around 75 to 80%, and your team are trained properly in delivering a consultation, then that the result of that will be more personal training clients, better personal training penetration, better personal training sales, and so on. So it makes your day so much easier because you'll come in, you'll assess the business, you'll look at the lagging KPIs and say, okay, we have some gaps here. Let me go and understand what we're not doing right. And like we just spoke about in the sales office, if sales are
Mm.
not where they need to be, you need to see the lagging KPIs. You need to see it. You need to know. But if not where you need to be, you now know what your day is going to look like. Do you need to do is your close percentage, is your tour to sale percentage really low? If it is, you need to go and train your closers, your sales team on a proper 8-stage sales process and doing a needs analysis properly and trial closing and price presentations and overcoming objections or whatever it is. If you're, you know, if you get the feeling that your team are not as engaged as what they need to be, you can look at things like your employee NPS, your
Yeah.
training hours per team member, all these different things. But it just gives you direction to fill your day. And like I say, look, to repeat what I said, I've been there where sometimes I'm trying to fill my 8 hours before I kind of really understood the business. Because I answer my emails, I kind of ask how people are getting on, but what do I do next, And it's the KPIs, it's the behaviors actually is what you do. Our jobs take away all the kind of improve people's lives and make them feel better and bring them as part of a community and all these things, which are super important. But our jobs are to put revenue on the bottom line, right? To put profit on the bottom line. And that comes from those behaviors. So to answer your question, it's really simple stuff. You just got to know the 4 to 6 KPIs per department, what they are, why they matter, how to affect them. And then you're just coaching your teams to deliver them.
Okay, I get it. Which then, because how many clubs have you operated, John?
I don't know, a lot. What as a GM?
Just, yeah, there's a lot of hundreds, aren't there? So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
if
hundreds.
in the present day,
Mm.
excuse me, in the present day, you when you go into a new business, for example, what are the
Mm.
essential KPIs that you need to understand that business?
So it depends on the department and it depends on the seniority of the
Yeah,
manager also. Because, the more senior you go, the higher up you go, you do have to lean more into lagging KPIs, unfortunately, because a lot of what you do is report to the board about what's happened. And that's what a lagging KPI does. So sales, revenue, EBITDA, or whatever. But if you're talking about at club level and GM and HOD,
mm,
then it really is department specific. But there's around 3 to 6 kind of recognized KPIs per department that do all of the heavy lifting. So we've just spoken about membership sales. Every health club in the world should have the big five. Well, look, there's a big five and a big four, right? So that becomes 9, but they're about the same things. The big five, which does include one lagging KPI, is calls, appointments, tours, sales, POSR. If you're not looking at them, I really don't know how you're running your sales business. I don't know what you're looking at. I don't know what you're doing. And then the big four that kind of lead into them is the ratios. So call to appointment, appointment to tour, tour to sale, sale to POSR, which are just kind of reflections of the same thing. But they're what you always need in the membership sales department. If you talk about fitness, so fitness PT specifically, we've just spoken about PTT. And again, look, these acronyms might be called different things in different businesses. But personal training tasters, how many new members have engaged in a taster or a consultation? And you need a process for that, but it's a really important metric. You then have PTTC, so personal training taster conversion. So how many of those people converted to become personal training clients? Again, why is that important? Because it essentially tells you the quality of the conversations your PT or fitness manager are having. Are they talking about the value and the benefit of PT? If they are, then that percentage will be quite high. So it shows you if that's low, it gives you something to do next. It's to
mm,
train your team on how to have these conversations. You have personal training penetration, personal training conductions, personal training retention, and all of these leading KPIs deliver the lagging KPI of PTS. So again, it's not rocket science, right? It's just basic stuff and understanding what it is and why it matters. You have group exercise, so things like GXP, GXO, GXMPS. So what's GXP? GX penetration. Now I would argue GX penetration is the most important KPI in the whole business because I'm sure as everyone knows, people who participate in GX, they stay longer, they refer more, so your retention improves, your attrition decreases, your lifetime value of your member goes up because GX members, they spend more, they engage more. So GX penetration, What a lot of businesses talk about is GX occupancy. Fine, we need to make sure our classes are full and we're getting value for money. But GX penetration, how many of our members are actively engaged in GX per month, is such a crucial KPI. And like I say, arguably the most important. Again, it goes department to department to department. I just mentioned leadership, and I'll mention it again because it's always a funny one for me. The amount of conversations I get into with people saying, you're just talking KPIs and you're not thinking about people. And, this business is about inspiring and motivating and coaching and developing people. I absolutely agree. Like it's paramount. It's the most important thing, but you've got to track it. So just talking about kind of, culture and Pizza Friday and giving people an easy ride, that's not how you, your team members get no value from that.
Yeah.
So you need to be tracking your leadership. You need to be tracking your culture, and there are KPIs for it. So the amount of people who kind of really, talk about this, but then don't track ENPS is wild. There isn't an employee NPS score, but they talk constantly about inspiring the team. It's so important, Graham. Like the people are everything, but you've got to track that what you're doing is right. So look, we can go on and on and on, right? And I talk about a lot about these KPIs in the book, but also on the YouTube channel, which we'll probably mention shortly.
Yeah.
But the important thing here, right, is that if you're an HOD who wants to become a GM, then the most important thing you can do is learn these 5 KPIs in your department and just live them every single day. If you live those 5 leading KPIs every day, you will produce the outputs that you're expected to produce. And the people who produce get promoted. That's how it works in this industry, right? And if you're a GM, then you need to know every HOD's KPIs, what they are, why they matter, and how you can affect them. Because it's literally your job to coach and lead them to help them achieve their numbers. So yeah, look, these KPIs are fairly set. When you see the same ones in David Lloyd as you will in Fitness First, as you will in the previous businesses I've worked, because I brought them in. But the best operators operate with these very clear numbers and ways of working.
Do you know what it makes me think of, John? It's almost like when I was in operations, I was sort of doing Sunday league coaching. You're doing sort of Champions League coaching because the detail, the the science, if you like, behind what you're talking about is what's made you so successful. And I have to tell everybody that when John and I chatted before we started, John, one of the things you said to me was that you just want people to improve. You want to help people, support people to get better at what they do. And you've just also touched on culture and leadership. How would you advise everyone here today to embed this into their culture? So it's a given that one of the things you do is you work with KPIs and you use them to tell you what's really happening in your business.
Yeah.
How do you get
Look,
it
I
into
think
the culture?
what I've learned, working around the world, so whether I'm in Liverpool or London or Abu Dhabi or Al Ain or Riyadh or Jeddah or Salmir or Mubarak Al Khabir, do you like the Arabic thing?
It's good
But
that,
whether
yeah.
it doesn't matter. People, people don't know what they don't know. So they operate with the operating system that they have. And they
Yeah.
do the best with that they can. Because most people, they want to do well. They want to be successful. Most people don't want to be average or to not get on. Most people actually want to thrive and do well. But there's a gap often between what they want to deliver and what they can deliver because their operating system is not kind of evolved or developed to where it needs to be. So in the last 5 years, you know, each of the businesses I've gone into, it's really been about education. So it's about teaching people what's important and teaching people what isn't important, what a leading and a lagging KPI is, how to read KPIs and take the correct actions based on the data. And once people really have a clear understanding of that, then they really have a direction. They have an understanding of what they need to do in their day. And that's the first start, right? The first point is that people still don't know what to do next. Like when I walked into Total Fitness, how I got there, I don't know. And when I got there, I didn't know. I didn't know what to do next. If you give people the operating system of what to do next, then at least they have kind of a direction in the day. And then you just need to normalize this. So, you need to embed KPIs into the balanced scorecard. They need to become the language, the conversations at work. So in one-to-ones, in team huddles, in meetings, or what have you. Again, like I said earlier, you're not walking into a room and saying, how are we getting on? Are things doing okay? You're not doing that. You're walking in and you're talking in the language of KPI. And when you do ask someone, how are things? Over time, they'll come back to you and say,
Mm-hmm.
calls are great. We've achieved X amount of calls, appointments are here, tour percentage is this. You start talking in that language. And over time, people see the outputs of that. So then KPIs change from being a management tool to being a performance tool. And then that's how it becomes culture. But it has to start from you as the leader. You have to train people what you want and then only speak in that language. And then quite quickly, I think this is the funny thing about winning or success is that when people find a strategy, and whether it's in kind of day trading or whether it's in getting in shape, losing weight, whatever, once people find a strategy, they will lean into that. And once you show people that if you do this, this, and this, you get this, they'll do it all the more. And that just comes from your training and your language day to day. So it's not a difficult thing to do. What the most important part is you need to know it properly, and then you need to have the ability to coach it into your team.
And then I've just written down the word celebrate because you talked about winning and and by going into this level of detail, you're going to find out who the high performers are, aren't you, as well?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, because you know you don't necessarily want to make KPIs punitive
Yeah.
in the sense that it has to be something that it's the way they behave, it's the way people hold themselves every single day. Now, if people constantly can't deliver the behaviors, then that the punitive measures have to be taken. But no, it's it's very simple to show yourself as a high performer when we're only asking you to behave in a certain way. If I'm
Mm.
asking you to do 30 completed calls and from that book 40% of those calls as appointments and to make 80% of those appointments show up, if that's what I'm asking you to do, you can really be a high performer for me without selling anything. We can work on those parts next. But
Yeah.
by demonstrating that you're prepared to do the activity and understanding why the activity matters, then people, as you say, really show themselves as high performers. And it's dead important. Look, reward and recognition is something that's really important
Mm.
in this business. And, you know, even certain things, and it sounds so basic, but when I was coming through, if I get a certificate from my general manager for, doing an extra hour, whatever it was, right? It made a difference. It mattered. And just because it's something we can do really easily, sometimes you can feel like it doesn't carry much weight, but it carries a lot of weight because people coming through, they really see you as kind of this big imposing figure.
Yeah.
And a little certificate or a pat on the back or whatever it is, people appreciate that. And rewarding those behaviors, I think, is important. I think just doing pizza, like I hate Pizza Friday, Graham. You've probably seen me mention it 1,000 times. Like pizza Friday. Let's build the culture. Let's have a Pizza Friday for what? Like what you're rewarding. So things like that, I think, are just utter nonsense. But
Mm.
rewarding actual behaviors and doing it in a big way, whether it's a small certificate or something actually quite big, has huge value. But as
Mm.
you say, it's dead easy to be seen. If you work in a culture that's about leading KPIs, it's dead easy to be seen and it's dead easy to win as well. Just do what you've been trained to do.
Can I just ask you, and I'm sorry, this is a little bit of a curveball, but you just meant you probably know I've got a real bugbear about cleanliness and hygiene in the fitness space. Um, can you monitor that as well with using KPIs, John? I remember you'll remember Total
Yeah.
Fitness. There was a cleaning and presentation, building presentation audit, but it wasn't. It was just a checklist, and it was a bloody big checklist as well.
Yeah.
Um, But you know, what would your advice be in terms of hygiene, cleanliness, particularly what we learned from the pandemic about hand washing and all that kind of thing? Is that
Yeah,
something that's essential as well?
without a shadow of a doubt, one of the issues is if you're not using KPIs to track this,
Mm,
you're, as a GM, one pair of eyes in a 25,000 square foot facility with 300 pieces of equipment. So you can do as good as you can do, but you can't be the all seeing eye, right? You can't be there 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can't see what's happening. So the KPIs that tell you, about your standards are things like NPS. So if you're
yeah.
asking your members, they will tell you. If
Mm,
you look on things like Google reviews, and there are so what we have NPS and we have Google reviews. They're
yeah.
the two KPIs when it comes to, I guess, member service and standards. We ask our members and they tell us what they see.
Mm,
So look, your team needs to be trained, your cleaners need to be trained, everyone needs to, you need to do your walk around. So as a GM, you should be walking your club at least 3 times a day, morning, midday, before you go home. You've got to be picking things up and looking underneath. Got to check under the treadmills, lift the weight stacks. You have to do that. Like that is the grind that you have to do. Those things don't go away. But like I say, you can't see everything. So your members are the best people to ask. And this is where NPS is so important.
okay.
Ask your members. Ask them every month or maybe every quarter, depends how you run your business. Ask them and they will tell you. And ask them before they just walk away.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who are, if you ask 3,000 people, how's the cleanliness, any issues, any recommendations or thoughts, then if it's bad, you're going to know quite quickly. They're going
Mm,
to tell you quite quickly. So I think you need to have things like a conscientious GM and management team who look at the detail daily, and NPS and your Google reviews and so on. I think
yeah.
they're really important.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. I'm sure everyone here would like to learn more from you, and so I want to ask you. And you did say to me you weren't here to plug anything. You want to help people
Yeah.
to improve and help the sector, the whole industry to be better. But you've written a couple of books, and you've also now got a brilliant YouTube channel, which I think you're going to share the link to, John. But
Yeah.
first of all, please tell us about your first book and then the KPI book.
So, look, both books started as internal training tools.
Hmm.
So, as I say, I operate in a region where, operationally and commercially, the maturity level is quite low. So, I needed a way to train my teams. And it started in the UAE, but when I got to Saudi Arabia, there was a much more pressing need for me to train the team on the basics. So I started with sales and I started just building kind of a sales training document.
Yeah.
So all these books, one focuses on kind of sales and conversion, the other's KPIs and performance management. But what they're not is they're not academic books by any stretch of the imagination. The playbooks, the things that someone can pick up and read and
Hmm.
then go ahead and implement. And they're really built to teach people. So look, I've got, we're not plugging anything. If anyone wants it, by the way, send me an email and I'll send you the PDF. You can have it for free. It's fine. But it was literally designed just to train people. And as I did more work on it, it got more dense, it got more refined, it got more structured. I completed my master's in sales and marketing management and started adding a bit of neuroscience and a bit of kind of behavioral psychology. And then before you knew it, it lended itself to being a book.
Yeah.
And as you know, kind of I publicized it for everyone to just have it for free. If anyone wanted it, send me an email, you can have it. Now it is for sale on Amazon. And if you do want to buy me a coffee, be my guest. But if you want the book, just send me an email and I will send you the book. And the same for the KPI book. It's actually been delayed from being published because I've partnered with one of the kind of digital KPI people. They
Ah,
wanted to be part of it. So fair enough,
yeah.
they can pay for the publishing of it. That's great.
Yeah.
So that's about to come out shortly. Um, but yeah, I mean, the same thing with the YouTube channel, right? So since the start of 2025, I've interviewed around 50 people for like real senior level
Hmm.
roles. Like I'm talking top roles here, but big roles, big salaries, and so on. And what became really clear to me is that, the lack of operational expertise and understanding isn't actually just confined to, Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Bahrain. It's, it really is a global issue. So I met lots of like genuinely senior people with real big titles, um, who just didn't understand the business at all, like at all. Um, so obviously naming no names, but so I built this channel really so I can just talk about the way we run health clubs, the KPIs, the sales systems, the retention systems, the dashboards, the performance culture. And it's because, look, I just think the industry needs to level up.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we're all in this industry to help people get in shape, to get better, to live more fulfilling lives. But the only way we can do that is if we run businesses properly, because it can't just be some, hobby run by an amateur and doing basic nonsense things, because, we have an obligation to our members to give them the best onboarding, the best chance to succeed, the best class structure and timetable, the best service and cleanliness and all these sorts of things. And without having a real understanding how to manage that business, you're just cheating the members. Not only are you not going to be delivering the performance that you could deliver, so you're likely to be less successful than you can be personally and professionally, but you're also not giving members what we promised them. So the whole idea of these kind of books and YouTube channels now, you know, you know, massive ego aside, is to just try and give the benefit of my experience and knowledge of working around so many global operators with so many really strong leaders who've taught me so many really good things. And it's just to pass him on.
Mm.
So, the videos are like 5 minutes long. Um, the cheesy as hell. I'm certainly not an influencer or a TV presenter, but I do try to give you some like actionable content that you can take away tomorrow or today and have a go and implement it into your club. And the more of these little bits that you take away, the more of your operational arsenal you improve, the more of your operating system you develop, and the more you're able to kind of succeed and win and deliver more for your members. So if anyone wants to tune in, by the way, it's the KPI, what is it? The KPI Guy HQ. I think that's what it's called. The KPI Guy HQ.
It's
Like my little
behind you, isn't
sign, my
it?
little sign behind me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and if you want any of the books, I'll release a video this afternoon. Put your email address in the comments, and I'll send you a book. How's that sound?
That's
So yeah,
brilliant. Thank you, John. Really do appreciate that. Just a couple of things I'd like to, before I ask, invite people
sure.
to talk to you. But you mentioned early doors in our conversation about PR. You sort of touched on it, something you've always been good at. But I don't know whether you do this with your people, but one thing I notice is that the number of people that don't have LinkedIn accounts and don't, share their experiences and share what's going on. And I think in this day and age, whether you like it or not, having a LinkedIn profile is quite important. Would you agree or not?
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree. We call it cringe book, right? And sometimes when I post some things on there, like I'm looking through my fingers, honestly, as I'm clicking post. But the truth is, there are a lot of good people doing lots of good work.
Yeah.
But if big decision makers are unaware of this work that you're doing, you're just someone else blending into a crowd of other people doing good work. And if you're really aspirational and you want to get on and you want to get the big opportunities, then you can't just be another good operator, because unfortunately, life just doesn't work that way. People are not going to come scouting you. You
Mm,
need to talk about the good things that you're doing
mm,
if you want to be seen. Now, my last 5 roles, or maybe it's 6. I mean, I do move around quite a lot, but from Les Mills to David Lloyd to Fitness First. So from GM through to where I am now as a chief operating officer, every single role came directly from LinkedIn. Somebody contacted me after I'd posted something on LinkedIn and said, we might have this, there's something this, would you be interested in this? So look, we all know, right? We've all seen the memes. We've all seen the Instagram jokes about LinkedIn and, how people are so kind of cogged into their roles. But so what, right? That is what we do, and that is who we are. We are corporate operators. So if you want to be successful, tell people about it. Tell people the good stuff you're doing. If you're an expert in a certain area, lean into it. So if you're an expert in GX, go and be that GX expert. Start offering value, give value to other people in the industry. And even though it may be called a bit cringy, every one of us on there, well, we're on there, aren't we? So we're part of cringe. We are cringe, but it's fine. So even if your post you think is a bit cringy, it's okay. I'll love it because I'm cringy, and I'll put mine. And Graham might love it because he's cringy as well. And don't worry about the critics. The critics don't count. There's something called there's a book called, I think it's The Laws of Power or something like that. And law 6 is, be seen, be conspicuous at all costs.
Yes, yeah. Is
You
it the
have to be
48
seen.
laws of power? Is it that one?
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I forget the actual law, but anything that is not seen doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. You need to do everything to not blend into the crowd. If you're someone who really delivers value, who performs, is really kind of doing good things in your job, you deserve more. You deserve to be promoted to enable you to affect more people. But you've got to tell people that you exist. So yeah, people hate on LinkedIn. Sometimes I do, but yeah, I think it's really valuable. And like I say, my career is being built through doing good work, I would like to say, and also telling people about it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, John. I think it is. Personally, you might have disagreed with me, but I think it's good. Okay, I'd like to just open this up to everyone that's here with us today. Please feel free to ask John a question. If you're shy, just put it in the chat. But you shouldn't really be shy in the jobs you're in. But if you have anything to ask John, now is a great opportunity to do so. This is where everybody goes
It's
quiet.
always the way.
Hi, John. I've got a question for you. My name's Ian.
Ian.
I'm the general manager at the Life Centre in Plymouth. Um, I'm Australian, and some of the businesses that I've worked in, mainly in Australia, such as the Fitness and Lifestyle Group, which is made up of Good Life and Fitness First.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came from a very KPI sort of driven environment, which is very easy, I think, to succeed in when you've got the clear boundaries and the frameworks, for success. How have you found working in sort of multiple countries? How have you found sort of the uptake between various cultures in terms of KPIs, and how willing are different people, I suppose, to getting on board and adapting to the way that they work?
It's a great question. Look, in the more mature markets, so in Dubai, people have been more exposed to people who've worked in leading operators globally. So they quite easily come along and understand that actually people who've been around these bigger operators tend to know a little bit more, tend to be able to deliver a bit more success. So they kind of see, the success leaves clues sort of old adage, and they quite easily get on board. In markets like Saudi Arabia, they've not been exposed to any of this at all. And it's a much harder sell. It really is a much harder sell. But the same thing applies, it's whether it's a hard sell or an easy sell, it still is down to you or me or whatever to make it live every day. So if you're the leader and you have a team, then if your only conversations are around these frameworks and KPIs and so on, then whether people like it or not, so long as you coach them and you've taught them the reasons why and the value, then they don't really have a choice but to get on board. But it's a really good question, because there's definitely kind of a real difference between those people in UAE and the people in Saudi Arabia. And particularly in, if you're in Riyadh and Jeddah, it's a little bit easier because they've been more exposed to larger businesses like Fitness Time and Fitness First and so on. When you go into the sticks, when you go into places like Abha, Dammam, Makkah, other places like that, I mean, it's difficult to say the least. A lot of the GMs, they've never been in the fitness industry at all. They don't understand any aspect of it. So it really is going way back to basics. But no, it's a really good question, because I think, look, in Liverpool versus Riyadh, it's much easier to educate people in Liverpool, just because they've been exposed to these frameworks and KPIs. So yeah, it does vary. It certainly varies around the world. But I think if you believe in what you do and really believe that what you know makes a difference, then you just embed that into the culture, and ultimately people will come along, or certainly they will come along or leave, one or the other, but you'll end up with a team that actually is involved, it wants to do the right things.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks, Ian. Chris Rushton.
Hey, Chris.
Thanks, Graham. How are you doing, John?
Good, mate. How are you? Long time.
Very well, thank you. It was great to hear that intro. So much common ground, and it's quite traumatic to trawl through all those KPIs. We've all been there, haven't we? The old sales funnel stuff. But I'm sort of intrigued. So I run a tiny little operation now in Blackpool. I sort of live around the corner and work in my hometown, which is gratifying in itself. But interestingly, having been through that, that journey with you, so Dave Brame, Martin Franklin, Martin in particular, absolutely top of his tree in terms of KPIs and data-driven analysis and all the rest of it. Yeah. Completely the opposite to me, by the way. But Martin and I work well together. But I'm running an operation now, which is very successful. We sort of doubled our membership one way or another, and we've done it without any salespeople. There isn't a sales KPI in my business right now, rightly or wrongly. And we've literally doubled our membership in 2 years and maintained yield.
Okay.
And fairly obviously that's been done digitally and online for the most part, a little bit, at the front desk, but increasingly it's online, and it's not unique to us, is it? It's get on the road to the gym group. You mentioned them, pretty similar. Yeah. So I suppose the question is, given the pressure on staff and the advent of AI in mainstream business, how do you see AI influencing the generation of KPIs and the analysis of KPIs? I was talking to someone who should be nameless just the other day, who's working on incredibly advanced AI, effectively to give you people to analyze all this stuff that aren't people, if that makes sense. Incredible advances. Where are you on all of that?
So I think it's a really great point and really great question. First, it depends on the sector, right? If you're in the high value, low cost sector, then a lot of these KPIs are irrelevant, because it's not how you sell. You sell on price. If you build it, they will come. You're digital. You tell people it exists. This is the price. People join. You don't pay for salespeople. I think if you're in the mid-market or the premium sector, then you need to have a way to demonstrate value, because just sticking price on an e-commerce website, well, if this is this price and that's that price, well, I'll choose the cheaper price because no one's demonstrated value. So I think it depends on the sector that you're in. And my guess is that I guess you're probably lower cost. Yeah. So it makes sense to definitely not have salespeople in that instance. You just need to let people know that you exist and your quality and your price and so on. But from the AI point of view, look, I don't know if you've seen things like fitness KPI as just one example. I don't know if we're allowed to mention brands on here, Graham.
Yeah. Absolutely fine.
Something like that. It's so important, particularly in this day and age where I think that most people have not had our kind of journey, Chris, where we understand these KPIs. A lot of people have come through the low cost sector and then ended up in other management roles. But going through the low cost sector doesn't teach you anything about running a PT business or a sales business or any of those sorts of things. So because of the scale of low cost and the amount of managers, that means most managers now coming through are from that upbringing. So having tools like Fitness KPI that understand the KPIs, they tell you what it should be, what the gap is, and what action you should take next. I think it's absolutely vital, because if you and another club are next to one another and this AI system is reading your business and literally giving you that action and direction to take, and this other person is relying upon, knowledge and experience or whatever, that's still not going to be as thorough, as kind of accurate as what the AI is. So I really believe at this moment, we've just about 8 months ago brought Keep Me AI in to help us with our inquiries, and it made such a huge difference, by the way. But relying upon humans to do the analysis and then to take the appropriate actions based on what they think is right, that's fine. But it's nowhere near as good as something like fitness KPI. So I think if you're running a mid-market or premium operator or a leisure center, for example, something that has people at the front of it, that's running sales and membership, PT and so on, I think it's an essential. I think it's something you absolutely have to have. What do you think?
I don't disagree. I think this stuff is happening so quickly that we're all struggling to keep on the pace.
Yeah.
Keep me. I'll be exposed to that, I think, again in the next week or two. Some of the things that I'm going to and attending, and it's about staying curious, isn't it? All that stuff you've outlined. It's all in the bank, but it's a lot of it's increasingly redundant, isn't it? Things are moving so quickly. So I remain curious, and I agree with everything you've said. I also have to confess that my daughter's flying out to Abu Dhabi in a couple of months. She's training for Emirates Aircrew, and I see all the noise around Norris and Stalker and all the rest of it. So I'm thinking I might pop over and have a look, to be honest.
Go over, but you'll need another hour's flight if you want to come to Kuwait. I'm in Kuwait now, but we're opening what's going to be the world's most iconic health club. That's what I like to call it. It's this massive beast with all the AI and digitization and smart features and so on. So if you're around Kuwait, I'll definitely buy you a coffee.
It shows my Middle East geography, doesn't it? There's work to do there.
Well, listen, when I landed, this is honest truth. When I landed in Dubai, when I landed there to live there, I thought it was a country. It's obviously a city in the UAE, but you learn as you go, right? You learn as you go.
Well, listen, thanks, John, and good luck with all of that.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks. Nice to see you. It's been a while.
It has, doesn't it? I think it was Chorley last time. Could be wrong.
Oh yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
There you go. See you later.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Anyone else a question for John before we finish? Right, John, I've got one.
Go on.
As you would expect.
Is it about haircuts?
Well, it's not my speciality, though. Apart from your own books, because I know you used to run a very well-respected book club, didn't you? A group of senior people that used to read books, etc.
Yeah.
So, for this group, apart from your two brilliant books, what what book would you recommend, or audio or hard copy or whatever? What would you recommend?
Okay, so I've always been a student of Brian Tracy. So when I was about 19, I was at David Lloyd didn't speak, I think, at 19. I bought this second-hand MP3 player, and it just happened to have like a full suite of Brian Tracy audio books on there, probably ripped from kind of LimeWire or Pirate Bay, or if you remember any of those things. And back then, look, there was no Netflix, the internet was boring, right? There wasn't a lot to distract you. So I spent a lot of time working out, playing football and listening to these audiobooks. And I really credit the teachings of Brian Tracy with taking me from, a little bit of a scally scouser on the wrong side of the tracks into kind of, doing some reasonable things. And his work on goal setting and clarity and, personal responsibility and procrastination and all these different things, it really had a serious effect on me. So I would recommend two books, and they're both by Brian Tracy. You could probably read them both in 90 minutes. But one's called Unstoppable and one's called Bullseye. And they talk about, it's about, a lot of it's the same things repeated, right? It's what he does, but it's goal setting, it's execution, and it's all of the things that kind of sit underneath what we've been talking about today. So I think the teachings of Brian Tracy, I put immense value on those. So yeah, them two books, Unstoppable and Bullseye. Give them a go.
Written those down. Thank you, John.
Let me know.
I've got a couple of Audible credits, so I'll get them.
Go on. I don't think my book's on Audible yet, Gray.
You mentioned this afternoon that you're posting a YouTube video, didn't you?
I did, yes.
The KPI guy. So I'd advise everybody to go and have a look on YouTube at John's channel. It's full of really good little snippets of advice on KPIs, so you can, take your time through those. John, I have to say, I've known you for a long time, but I wish I'd known how good you are at this kind of thing, because I'd have asked you on years ago. I'd have asked you to come and speak at an LFX. So yeah, maybe I'd love to. I would love to talk to you again around Group X as well. I think because of your vast experience just on that alone, I think it'd be brilliant to have you back as a guest and to talk about Group X
Anytime,
and
Graham.
business.
Anytime. Big fan of kind of what you do, and
Thank
I
you.
think it's really important. When I was coming through, I really looked for people to kind of teach me and tell me. So any opportunity to share any experience is a good opportunity, I think. So yeah.